What's up, y'all? This your boy Professor Dre Marley, man. Welcome to Higher Learning Lesson 2. Today we're going to discuss something that's deeply tied into American culture. This topic has been subject to debate for decades because of the paradox it creates in the communities they exist in. How fine is the line between good and bad? Can anyone be all good? Are bad people product of their environments and situations? Or is it just good and evil choices? Let's discuss people who use the perception of good to fulfill their desire to be bad, while destroying social constructs and creating tension between people and their government. In 1992, NYPD arrested a suspected distributor and enforcer for the Diaz cartel for operating a drug ring in Newark, New Jersey. The man was named Michael Dowd, and he was a part of the NYPD 75th Police Precinct operating in East New York and Brooklyn area. The 75th Precinct to this day is the most sued precinct with close to 1,400 complaints. They are known to brutalize residents, falsify evidence, and make false arrests. Between 1982 and 1992, Michael Dowd distributed cocaine, warned the Diaz cartel about raids, went on unauthorized raids, aka robberies, kidnapped, and escorted drug shipments to the drop point. Dowd said he began his corruption because he was feeling underappreciated and broke. His partner at the time was Henry Guerra, who retired after getting paranoid about all the corrupt police being indicted. His second partner was Henry Urell, who eventually set David up to be arrested during a kidnapping by the Mullen Committee, a task force given the job to arrest all the corrupt police that was in New York during this time. Michael Dowd's life was a movie. This is just a synopsis. Imagine Scarface as a cop. He drove a foreign to work, but it's safe to say his arrogance eventually got him caught. I don't know, man. They like blaming rappers for starting trends like snitching on himself, but I feel like this motherfucker snitched on himself as soon as he pulled up to the police station with a fucking brand new foreign that he could not afford on the police salary. Come on now, dude. There definitely is not a shortage of corrupt cops in New York. I could have made this whole list about police precincts and people that was corrupt in New York, but save that for another time. Soon after the Michael Dowd situation came the Dirty 30 of New York, the 30th precinct in Harlem and Upper Manhattan. Most police supervisors turned a blind eye to the corruption but never participated. Sergeant Kevin P. Nannery changed that once he dubbed his department Nannery's Raiders. They committed a list of crimes including extortion, perjury, civil rights conspiracy, narcotic distribution, and larceny. They eventually created a term called booming, where they stopped and frisked people just to rob them, and they made unauthorized sieges, aka robberies, from known drug dealers where they sold coke right from the precinct. Yeah, y'all heard me right. They was selling dope right out the motherfucking precinct, y'all. And the prices was half of what you could get on the street. A gram of coke on the street was $90. At the precinct, it was $50. You hear me? And if you wanted a key on the street, it was $30K. At the precinct, you could get it for between $16K and $20K. So they was wiping out all the competition through business and through raids. They was getting it on both sides. Soon, a man named Barry Brown went undercover against them, ending with 33 arrests, 2 suicides, and 50 cases being thrown out immediately. The Dirty 30 ended up, being the second largest group of cops charged with corruption in New York history and probably American history, to be honest. So it seems like the police don't always get away with it, though you know the government's still the biggest gang in the world. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know the CIA was proven to put work in black communities, so take all this with a grain of salt. They just might be red herrings, you dig? Here's someone who most of you know about without actually knowing you know about him. His name is Rafael Perez of the LAPD Crash Unit, an anti-gang unit operating between 1989 and 1998. And guess what? All y'all favorite Denzel Washington movie is based off of this man, Training Day. Though not 100% accurate since Perez didn't get killed by Russians. Perez on the surface was an outstanding police officer. He was tough and effective, had an extensive knowledge on gangs, plus he was fluent in Spanish. But if you look a little closer, Perez was a murdering, robbing, perjury committing official enforcer for the Bloods, who was also affiliated with Death Row and Suge Knight. He was finally arrested in 1998 for trying to steal cocaine from the evidence locker from the precinct. He then implicated 70 dirty cops, becoming the infamous Rampart scandal, resulting in over 100 convictions being overturned. Pause. Now this is a serious question. Do you feel like he should get the same treatment as any other snitch or rat, or is he low-key a real nigga for at least snitching on 70 cops, resulting in 100 niggas being free because of the falsified reports and just the corruption in the police department? You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, he a real nigga. He's still a snitch because as a cop, that's a gang. You think of the cops as a gang. That's why they stick together like they do. You know what I'm saying? They don't turn, they don't switch up on each other because they a gang too. They got the same code of silence that the streets got. You know what I'm saying? But in our terms of us not being cops and him also being a blood, he a real nigga. You know what I'm saying? He probably got buku motherfuckers free and probably didn't need to be free in the first place because a few of the officers that he implicated, like 5-10 years later, it came out and they won a legal lawsuit with millions of dollars that they was innocent. You know what I'm saying? But fuck, the niggas was free by this time. So what y'all think, you hear me? While he was in jail, he claimed to be partly responsible for Biggie's death. A couple officers from his unit were caught stealing $800,000 from evidence. Perez claimed it was to pay Harry Billups for the murder, though he said he was not paid in full because Diddy wasn't killed too. He eventually got out of jail to become a chauffeur for guess who? Harvey Weinstein. He died in 2018. What's your thoughts on Perez? Now here's something for you to think about. Since Perez was a blood, you hear me, and was affiliated with Suge Knight, and it said that he had something to do with the hit, do you think Suge ordered him to do it? And do you think the LAPD didn't investigate the murder because they knew an officer had something to do with it? Think about that and let me know what you think. Now, it's time for our last and final entry on the list. This is a story about 19 cops known as the Miami River Cops. We only talking about 19 cops right now because of the specific situation and event that occurred, but in all actuality, this was the tip of the iceberg for the corruption of the police in Miami during the 70s and the 80s. Now, to discuss these cops, we gotta do a little more history about something that happened 10 years prior. Castro sent all Cuba's quote-unquote undesirables, aka criminals, inmates, poor, prostitutes, and sick to America, where they landed in Florida. Y'all might remember the beginning of the movie Scarface, when they was in the tents under the bridges in what they call Tent City, and it was just thousands of Cubans in this one little area just being quarantined. Yeah, that's how it was in real life. Because Castro did this and because how America handled the situation, the cocaine cowboy era of the 70s and 80s began. After the infamous Liberty City riots, there was a hiring blitz at the Miami Police Department. During this time, they quickly hired men basically off the street, rarely checking backgrounds or even making them go through any training. Because of this, the police corruption in Miami was rampant. It was scary to say the least. Civilians, your grandma, your grandpa, your auntie, they was carrying guns. Some people was carrying too. The group of men dubbed the Miami River Cops created a racketeering enterprise committing perjury, robbery, narcotic distribution, civil rights violations, and murder. The same group of men that was tasked to take down the infamous Griselda Blanca turned their attention to the River Cops after a robbery murder in 1985 went bad and got immense coverage, so the Miami police had to investigate what really happened. Well, this is what really happened. 8 of the 19 River Cops robbed a drug shipment at a Miami port, killing 3 of the traffickers. They committed the robbery under the guise of cops performing a raid, taking $7 million worth of cocaine. Though the river cops didn't really deal too much with drugs and distribution, they got immensely rich off of murder. You can imagine, if you've seen the documentary Cocaine Cowboys, how much money was generated during this period for Miami, basically building the Miami as we know it. You hear me? You can imagine how much these men made off of just killing people. Once arrested for the robberies, though, at least 10% of Miami police were suspended or fired for corruption after this scandal. So here's a little nostalgic question for you. During the 70s and 80s, during this cocaine cowboy era, Scarface era that we know, you know what I'm saying, would you have been a river cop, or would you have been a cocaine cowboy? You know what I'm saying? Because obviously it had enough money for everybody going around. So which side would you have chosen, since obviously the lines between good and bad are blurred?